Whew. It's been a crazy week, hasn't it? I'm like almost exhausted from the week that I personally had, but hello everybody. Welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope. My name's Cam White. This time it's for but through May 17th through May 23rd of 2021. Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. If you're like me and you hate ad commercials, even though I love that you guys watch my ads because it helps support me and helps pay my bills. But if you really don't like advertisements and you also really want to support me, go to my Patreon. I'm now offering commercial-free horoscopes. So if you want to watch my horoscopes without the commercials, become a patron member. And that's for all the tiers too. So $5 tier, $10 tier. The $10 tier people are also going to get something extra here soon, but you guys got to be a little patient for that. Anyway, let's get straight into this week. This is, I think coming off last week with Jupiter and Pisces and just the new moon in Taurus, it was kind of like, also too, Venus entered Gemini, Mercury entered Shadow. The moon was pretty much in Gemini for the most of the week, so the moon was like all over the place. So last week was kind of chaotic, not gonna lie. Like, even though the new moon in Taurus was really the time to get settled, get grounded as much as you can, there was a lot of new information kind of coming in with all that Gemini stuff. So as we get into this week is where everything else kind of turns. So let me pull up the chart here. We start Monday off on, I'm looking at the 24th here. Whoops. Let's go back here to the 17th. We start Monday off with the moon in Leo, and the moon's going to be making a sextile to Venus. At the same time, it's going to be making a sextile to Uranus. This is going to be later on in the evening, of course. Actually, it's going to be in the night because the moon's literally just going to ingress into Leo and apply to Uranus and Venus. So this is kind of a two-way street where the moon squaring Uranus is like, there's some unpredictability, there's some like risk involved, and the moon sextiling Venus, where it's like, the pretty girl at the casino saying, yeah, gamble, yeah, do it, it's fun. Like, it's very, like, this is, not peer pressure, but that's a one way to describe it. I would almost look at Monday as the moon's in Leo. You want to look good, you want to act confident, you might be a little bit prideful, and as the moon's squaring Uranus, that involves taking a risk, As the moon sextiling Venus, though, like, taking risks is what it's about, man. Like, it's also about having fun. So I think on Monday, with the moon in Leo applying to Uranus and Venus the whole day, really, there's going to be this kind of like sense of, I want to do things in the best way as I can. I have a lot of pride. I have a lot of passion I'm trying to put into it. It can be a little destabilizing. It can be a little shocking that moon square Uranus, like not just because it's a risk and it's fun doesn't mean you won't lose, right? But we're having fun. Like, that's the thing about gambling. People take it way too serious. Like, have fun. It's a game. Like, especially people who play games and then just don't actually have fun playing it. It's just like, why are you actually here then? You can be competitive. You can want to win and put your all into a game and still have fun. And that also just requires losing. And I bring up losing specifically because the moon's going to be opposite Saturn. So the moon later on that evening, after it squares Uranus, sextiles Venus, is pretty much just going to start to apply to Saturn, where there's this sense of, okay, is this what I'm trying to, the moon opposite Saturn is like, sometimes you have to know when to draw, or have to know when to stop, right? Especially if you're like a gambler. Well, a lot of gamblers don't know when to stop. But with the moon opposite Saturn, you really do have to know when to stop. You have to know when to step in the spotlight. You have to know when your emotions and your pride matter. And you also have to know when to shut up. That sounds kind of weird, but Monday, it's kind of like, you're going to feel a little bit risky. You're going to want to have a little bit fun. And you can do that, right? Like, something like, just to do the gambling analogy, like every now and then I'll go and gamble. And, my thing is like, $20 or $100 and then, that's it. I don't go for more. That's kind of like my limit. It's really important to have limits with Saturn, right? And so this moon in Leo is like, feel prideful. If you want to be seen, if you want to be heard, do those things. But like, just get what you need. I remember as a kid, the one thing I hated the most was like when you'd take a drink of water from the water fountain and some douchebag behind you would just be like tapping your back, be like, 1, 2, 3, that's all you need. I like literally, it's like ingrained in my brain. I probably triggered some of you too. But that's kind of like this energy, like 1, 2, 3, that's all you need. Like, get it, leave. We jump into Tuesday. And on Tuesday, this is when the moon, after it separates from Saturn, is really just going to be sextiling Mercury all day long. So Mercury's slowing down at this point, but Mercury's still in Gemini. So the ability to communicate, the ability to also just like learn. Gemini is kind of like all of the details, right? And Sagittarius is kind of like the mythos behind those details, right? With Mercury and Gemini starting to slow down, all Mercury slowing down is just showing like Mercury's watching a little bit more of what it says. Mercury's not just, if Mercury was flying through Gemini, it's like, we're going to get this done today. We're going to get this done today. We're going to get this done today. Mercury's starting to slow down. It's like, let's actually go through this a little bit. Let's talk about it for a little bit. But as the moon's in Leo, making that sextile to Mercury, there's this like, how do I put it? This is almost this is very flirty energy for one, but the moon in Leo is like, I feel really good, so I think I'm gonna say this. I feel a certain way. I feel very prideful. I feel very authentic. I feel very raw, and so I'm going to express that. I think Tuesday really is not really the biggest day at all. Of course, this week there's way bigger days. Tuesday is really just the moon sextiling Mercury, so this is really just good for communicating with people, talking with people, and especially try not to stir the pot this day. Try not to cause too much drama this day. Mercury's in shadow. What you say now, you're going to come back to, right? Or whatever Mercury rules in your chart, whether it's like your 6th house of like work, or it rules like your 11th house of friendships. There's something going on in that area that you're going to be coming back to. And this moon in Leo is kind of not antagonizing, but almost enabling it. So the moon in Leo is like what's not enabling, instigating it. That's a better way to put it. So as the moon's in Leo, we're going to be feeling good about ourselves. We're going to be feeling prideful. It's going to make that sextile to Mercury where it's like we're able to communicate and express that effectively. And then essentially the moon doesn't go void because it's going to square the sun. But I don't know if that counts as void or not. The void moon for everyone who's confused about what a void moon is, everybody is. Like, there's like 4 different definitions of a void moon, and it's just like, really, I think it's situational in my opinion. Unless it's like horror, then it's like really specific. But we get to Wednesday, it's like only 8 minutes in, I'm like flying through this. We get to Wednesday, moon's pretty much just hanging out in Leo for the most part, void. Right? It's going to kind of square the sun if you want to count that as like a aspect of anything. But the moon squaring the sun is, the luminaries, it's kind of like when there's contradictory evidence or there's contradictory facts. Like something like there's both things can be true at the same time, even though they don't mesh together. So there's a little bit of, it's not like when 2 facts kind of like go against each other, it's not a force pushing you back like a planet. A planet's more a force. Like a luminary is just information. The moon's going to go into Virgo, where it's going to make that opposition to Jupiter. Now, I know technically we had the moon make an aspect to Jupiter when it went into Cancer this past week. And that technically would have been the first aspect Jupiter would have received from the moon. But it's a trine. Like a trine is like, yay, Jupiter in Cancer. Cool. Not that that's not important. But on Wednesday, as the moon's opposite Jupiter, I really think this is a confrontation with Jupiter. A trine with Jupiter is like, that's fine. We're all in agreement there. There's no having to dissect something, right? It's kind of like, when 2 people agree on something, I wish I had a better way to explain this. When 2 people agree on something, there's no challenge. You don't get the best out of them, right? Like when like a team, like let's say like a baseball team or a football team, if they're the best and they don't have some type of confrontation or challenge that pushes them to be greater, what are we actually getting out of it, right? I think as the moon goes into Virgo and goes opposite Jupiter and makes this confrontation with Jupiter, I think we really get to see what this Jupiter in Pisces is all about. Now, of course, I can only say so much on YouTube. So I don't want to get really demonetized. And also I know everyone else here is really sick of just talking about COVID and everything else. But I thought it was really interesting that the mask mandate got lifted. That's temporary. That's going to come back when Jupiter goes into Aquarius. No problem. But also too, a lot of astrologers are fear-mongering Jupiter in Pisces as if Jupiter in Pisces right now is going to conjoin Neptune. And it's just like, everyone needs to calm the fuck down, for one. We just got here. We literally just got here. Maybe there's something good about this. Maybe we can. Again, like I said, I've been saying this since 2020 for the people who have been watching me. This Jupiter in Pisces is just going to give us a glimpse of what 2022 has to offer us. It's not here yet. We get a little bit. Well, cool. They lift the mask mandate. You'll probably see a couple companies take that off. But it'll come back when Jupiter goes back into Aquarius. Pretty for sure. But I think this moon in Virgo opposite Jupiter, you might, where Jupiter in Pisces is very, I have faith. I have belief. Anything is possible, right? And not to give the over positivity to Jupiter here. Yeah, Jupiter is in Pisces, which is good, but that doesn't mean it's overly positive, right? This is Jupiter's home sign. This is Jupiter's in full control, right? It has autonomy over its decisions. So it's not that Jupiter, like I feel like people just paint Jupiter and Pisces as like, oh, it's going to be this magical wonderland of like thoughts and beliefs, but Jupiter in Sagittarius was like, there's a vision, right? There's a goal. It's a fire sign. There's passion. With Pisces, it's not really about that. Jupiter in Sagittarius is finding meaning through the story, finding meaning through the adventure. You know, that saying of the destination, or the journey is the destination. That's not what Pisces is about. Pisces is like, you know, this is something that I've really been kind of coming to terms with, and this might just be me growing up, because I'm only 24. I know a lot of you probably think I'm a lot older, but I'm only 24. I'm about to turn 25. And for a long time, like 18, 19, 20, all those years, it was just like, you know, life was just turning around the corner every single day. And I'm finally starting to get to the point in my life now where it's the same shit, different day, right? It's really about what you make of it in that moment. There's not, the grass is greener where you water it, and the grass isn't greener on the other side. And Jupiter in Pisces is like, we have to make something okay with this moment. Jupiter and Sag is like, everything's going to be better because we're going to go here and we're excited for this destination. We're excited for this journey. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with Jupiter and Pisces either. But with Jupiter and Pisces, it's not, there's not this big grand scheme. There's not this, you know, oh, this planet. Pisces, I always think of Pisces now, only my Gen Z and millennial followers will understand this analogy that I talk about here. But in that SpongeBob episode where Squidward, I think it's the future, like SpongeBob 2082 or whatever it's called. There's an episode where Squidward pretty much enters what would you call it? Like a purgatory. It's like this blank space, and he's like all alone, and you know, there's no borders, there's no up or down or left or right. It's all just there. And you know, when you don't have anything to distract you and you really only have yourself and like your thoughts to work with, what comes up in that situation? And I think that's what Jupiter and Pisces is. Jupiter and Pisces is also just having faith in that moment. Like, you know, there's so many situations in life that I think like Jupiter and Sag is really good for being hopeful. I think Jupiter and Sag is way better of like seeing the glass half full. And Jupiter and Pisces is like, the glass doesn't have to be half full. It's just that like, you know, the glass has water in it. Jupiter and Pisces is just much more open-minded. I also say Pisces is like that true water sign too. When you talk about the physical elements of water, solid, liquid, gas, depending on its environment, and this is the thing. If you know a Pisces, or if you're a Pisces watching this, I swear to God, Pisces act differently based off like what environment they're with. If they're in their home by themselves versus with friends, it's like completely different people. And this is me, of course, just anecdotal, generalizing here. But Pisces is really dependent on its environment, right? What like Pisces is very hypersensitive. So when there's too much stimulation, too much noise, it's a little bit much, right? But when there's a relaxed, safe space, you can expand more. And so Jupiter in Pisces is really depending on your environment and also too, your environment always wins. There's no, like, if you're in a toxic environment, you're never good, like, this isn't to be a pessimist, but like, your environment always wins. So if you're trying to better yourself and you're in a shit environment, like, what are you gonna, like, it's like the sober people, it's, you can't go back to the bar and hang out with your drunk friends if you're trying to not drink, right? You know what I mean? You can't try to better your life when you're hanging around that crowd. And so Jupiter in Pisces is asking you, like, what environments are you in? Because that's also going to adapt, that's going to shape your beliefs. A lot of astrologers are really, and I'm one of them. Most astrologers should be. The Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in 2022 is going to be really good for a lot of reasons. The worst part of it, though, is things like the media, things like, really just specifically the media is going to be like dystopian level bad, in the level of like, I hate saying the term fake news because I don't like enabling that. I look at Jupiter-Neptune conjunction as there's really two, like, again, it's very, in one way it's very divisive, but I think you're going to see a lot of people really influenced by the media, regardless of what that media is. And this might be over exaggeration of it, right? And that's something to be worried about then. But for right now, the question is, well, it's like, again, the media you watch influences you. You on YouTube watching me talk about this shit right now is influencing you, even if you disagree with everything that I say. So the question is, what are you allowing yourself to be influenced by? Because Jupiter's about telling stories, right? And the stories you tell yourself are your reality. Because I'm a big science fan, right? I'm a big science nerd. This is half the reason why I got into astrology. I know that sounds like weird, but at the end of the day, your beliefs shape your reality. We have proven this in physiology, in your literal body. If you, like, there's people who literally beat cancer because they have that mindset of it, and then there's people who won't beat cancer because they don't have that mindset that won't beat it. I'm saying this because I know people on my comments are going to be like, "Well, Cameron, you don't understand, blah, blah, blah." We've all had experiences of people being able to believe in something, to believe in the impossible, and they did it. And we've all had experience of knowing people, whether it was you or someone else, not believing in themselves and something that they could totally do, but because they don't believe in it, they don't do it, and it never happens. Like, in my opinion, Jupiter in Pisces is as good as you're going to make it, just like any other good transit. You can have the best transit in the world, and if you think it's going to be bad, it's going to be bad. So my recommendation for this Jupiter in Pisces is really question what stories you're telling yourself and get really clear with what's influencing you. Now, I'm bringing this up because with the moon going opposite Jupiter, we're going to get really hypercritical here. I think in the news, you're going to see a lot of people get really critical about the CDC's decision. With the moon in Virgo, right? Our emotions. I always talk about the moon in Virgo. We want to tear things apart, get really nitpicky, be really, specific and orderly. And also, moon in Virgo is so hypochondriac. So this moon in Virgo opposite Jupiter and Pisces the moon in Virgo is really going to criticize Jupiter and Pisces. And I think this is when we're going to see Jupiter and Pisces work a little bit, right? When it's like the quiet kid in class. He doesn't say much. That's not a problem, right? Some people like that. But you really don't see who that person is until you try to not pick on them. That sounds weird. It's like open someone up. Like when someone's not really that open and they're kind of shy and you kind of have to extract things. Like, come on, just open up a little bit. That's this moon in Virgo opposite Jupiter. So on Wednesday, this is really going to be the time where you want to be specific, right? Jupiter in Pisces is, if you have the faith, God will provide. I'm not Christian, but God, the universe, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it's going to provide for you. Just like literally it provide, like this is something that I've been really thinking a lot about. Like, isn't it crazy that we're literally made out of all of this stuff that's here on earth? Like of course, when it comes to economics and resourcing things and the allocation of resources is very difficult. That's one thing, but like we have everything we need on earth. We have everything we need. Everything we have is there. I think this moon in Virgo going opposite in Jupiter's going to provide. Moon in Virgo is really looking at that in a microscopic sense. This is kind of having that conversation, going in a little bit deeper. And I also think with the moon in Virgo too, you're going to feel like, let's not forget, this is Gemini season, or it's about to be Gemini season. So there's going to be this sense of like, you know, it's going to be kind of chaotic. The moon in Virgo is a little, in my opinion, like anxious. So I think this anxious moon in Virgo going opposite Jupiter is, for one, you should critique your beliefs, but also don't ruin the party. Like I talked about this before too. Like the moon in Virgo is like the worst critic that you can have. Like it's literally like the type of critic that you're like, can you just stop talking? Like just stop. This moon in Virgo opposite Jupiter is like, Jupiter's in Pisces. There is optimism. There is hope. Now, a lot of people also don't want you to believe that. And this is what pissed me off, because I just saw so many tweets about people just straight up fear-mongering this Jupiter in Pisces. And it's like, look, dude, you had the decade to fearmonger Saturn and Pluto. Yeah, there's so many other things to fearmonger. Jupiter in Pisces is really not one of them, to be honest. Really. We have tons of more shit transits coming up. Tons more. It never stops. That's life is. My thing is though, we finally get a fucking good transit. The greater benefic's finally home. You should take that as, let's actually see where the good is. And it's Jupiter and Pisces. You gotta make that good there. The good's not on the other side of the fence. The good is like the grass is green where you water it. And so don't let anyone pop your bubble. Don't let this moon in Virgo, there's gonna be critics, and that's good. We need that, but have faith. That's Wednesday. Also on Wednesday, I didn't even talk about Venus is trining Saturn. Venus on the North Node is really like intensifying, taking things to the extreme when it comes to connection, fun, all that stuff. But as it trines Saturn, there's this, let's think about the last time this happened, when Venus was about to go retrograde. And this was like in the middle of lockdown when everyone figured out how to work Zoom and house party and everyone was just like going crazy, talking to each other. This is a very social time. It's here in the chart. Venus in Gemini is very social, very talk. I'm a Venus in Gemini, and I love connecting and hanging out with people. It also rules like my 11th house of friends. But as it trines Saturn, these are like serious connections. Like these are good connections. These are stabilizing connections. You're also maybe connecting through ideas, connecting through values, morals. Like this is like connecting and being like, yeah, this is my team. This is who like I fuck with, right? So the Venus trine Saturn thing just looks fun in the background. I just think the moon going opposite Jupiter is going to really kind of take the show away a little bit. We get to Thursday, and on Thursday, the sun's going to enter Gemini. Pretty much this is when the chaos starts. Eclipse season starts. It's Gemini season. It's always crazy. Again, think back to this time last year. Shit was popping off. But it's going to square Jupiter, where this, in my opinion, I've been looking at this one for a while. And the Sun-Jupiter square looks interesting, where the Sun in Gemini is like, oh, there's this, there's that. There's, again, all of this Gemini stuff is a lot of intake of information. And as the Sun squares Jupiter, there's a little bit of suspicion here, which, again, this is also why I'm saying, like, in August, at the end of July, when Jupiter goes back into Aquarius and the CDC requires mask mandates and does lockdowns again, don't be surprised. If there is an astrologer that is surprised that happens, they don't know what they're doing. I'm sorry to say that. But this sun squaring Jupiter, and again, I also think like the thing is with Jupiter and Pisces, like beliefs, stories, everything deserves criticism. And I think the sun square Jupiter is on Thursday, like seeing where the faults lie. But it's much more about like, well, this is like in the classroom, you can have a question, right? And then there's the people that immediately be like, whoa, wait, I don't get it. And then, but if they just waited 5 seconds for the teacher to keep explaining things, they would have got to their question, right? This is one of those moments. You're going to have some questions, but just hang on tight. We're going to answer those questions very soon. But I would say that with the moon going into Gemini, this is just really starting eclipse season. So you're really going to start feeling just the energy ramp up. I hate to say like the energy, but like the energy is going to ramp up. You're going to feel it when the sun goes into Gemini. The moon's also going to be in Virgo. There's a few things that's happening. The moon is first going to square Venus. So again, the moon in Virgo squaring Venus is like, be picky, but also not everything's going to be perfect. The moon in Virgo squaring Venus is you're going to find the faults in certain connections. You're going to feel the moon in Virgo is like when you try to just like analyze everything, it really kills the fun out of stuff. Like it really does. I'm not saying that the moon in Virgo is always bad, but this time around it's not fun. It's a kind of a party pooper. The moon's going to sextile Mars, where after we, go, oh, this isn't as fun, this isn't as cool. The moon's going to sextile Mars in Cancer, which again is like just the overall crabbiness. And, also Mars in Cancer is taking a lot of action on like, the things that we're taking action on our agenda is nurturing, taking care of things, right? Mars likes to fight. Mars likes to attack, right? But Mars in Cancer is like, dude, I'm not feeling good. Like I kind of need to take a knee. And the moon in Virgo sextiling Mars is like, you can kind of pick apart the things that are going crazy, but this moon sextiling Mars is like, that might help you also see what where your priorities should be. Like, just because something's fun, that, like, again, I also believe everything should be criticized. I think the moon squaring Virgo is like, this moon squaring Venus is like, okay, don't pop the balloon. You don't have to say it. We're all thinking it. You don't have to say it though. But the moon sextiling Mars is like showing you, what you need and what you don't need. Moon in Virgo is like, that's funny. Hey, Mars, do you really think you should be doing this since this is happening? Like Venus and Gemini, all this connection, the moon in Virgo is like, I don't think this is what I need right now. And it's sextiling Mars in Cancer. And so like, sure, you might be doing, connecting in a lot of different ways, but you don't have to do it in the way that everyone else is doing it. But then immediately after the moon sextiles Mars, that night, moon's gonna apply to a square with Mercury for pretty much the whole night, where this is kind of a battle of ideas. This is wanting to say the right thing and trying to get it right, and it just doesn't come out that way. But there's gonna be this need to say something. This like, okay, I gotta express this. I see it this way. I can't. And let's say, for example, moon squaring Venus, you're like, okay, I'm kind of over having this fun. Moon sextile Mars, like, I need to take care of myself. And then the moon squaring Mercury is like trying to Whoa. Oh God, sorry. Jesus Christ. Something just like hit my throat really hard. I don't know what that was. Moon square Mercury. But moon square Mercury is like, there's going to be kind of this, if you're someone like me, oh my God, what was that movie? I think it was The Ring. It was a scary movie. And there's like this moment where they go to the girl who's in like the psych ward, and she like paces her little room so much that like she literally has like an indented trail. I'm like that. I pace my house so much, like I'm literally like a psychopath. This is like one of those moments where it's like, if you're really thinking really hard about something, you're like pacing around and like trying to figure it out. That's what Thursday really feels like. And I don't think you're going to figure it out. We're not going to solve all of the world's problems today. That's the way to really look at it. And there's going to be a time where you got to, put something down. And that's going to be Thursday night. We get into Friday. Friday, the moon's really just going to be void. For the most of the day, the moon's going to be separating from Mercury, not doing much. And then it enters Libra late at night, which immediately makes that trine to the sun, right? So really Friday is just kind of like I mean, sure, the moon will be in Virgo and it will go opposite Neptune later, actually on Thursday night. So again, more confusion. But the moon void in Virgo is really just kind of doing nothing. The second the moon enters Libra, Friday night. Friday night sounds pretty fun in my opinion. This weekend honestly looks really cool in a lot of different ways. But as we get to Friday, the moon's going to enter Libra, where it's like, hey, again, we're not going to solve the world's problems tonight. Moon in Libra is like, where can we bring more balance? Where can we be more fair about this? How can we see both sides? Yeah, really. Well, we have more to talk about with the moon in Libra, but really Friday, I just wanted to say Friday really doesn't have a lot going on. We get into Saturday. Moon is going to first trine Saturn. Then, after it separates from Saturn, it's going to trine Venus. And Mercury is going to square Neptune. So this is a double-edged sword. The moon trining Saturn is like, the moon in Libra wants to work with people, work with others, be fair, be balanced, not rock the boat. It likes to see things on both sides, though. This is a moon ruled by Venus and Saturn. It will do what it has to do to have fun, but it also has discernment. And as the moon trines Saturn, this is like the ideas are starting to come together and things are starting to really, solidify. The best way I can kind of think of it, and this is kind of, this isn't really even the best analogy, but I don't know how many of you are masons or carpenters, and out of those group, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Roman concrete, but I learned about this last year, and I thought it was incredible. It talked about how the moon, or not the moon, that'd be crazy, but it talks about how, why has Roman structure lasted for fucking ever? And it's because they would make concrete out of seawater. And it was the salt that would like bind the concrete in this like super strong way. And I kind of bring that in the sense where, there's this something that the moon in Libra is, as we're trying to find this balance, as we're trying to get things just right, as it trines Saturn, I think we find that right recipe. Right? Like, if you're baking cookies, sometimes it's like too much flour, too much sugar, too much butter, whatever it is. But I think as the moon's trining Saturn, we get the concoction just right. Saturn's also about to station retrograde too. Saturn's motionless at this point. So this is like, really, you're marking off your checklist before Saturn goes retrograde. Is everything bare? Is everything in the right place before, the curtains unveil? As the moon separates from Saturn and trines Venus, hey, once you get the work done, let's party. Like, that's moon in Libra trining Venus and Gemini. I am a moon in Libra trining Venus and Gemini. In fact, my Venus is at 18 and my moon's at 22. So like, I want you to, Saturdays like embody me. Like at least the part of me that's, fun and very like connecting, very, communicative in Gemini and Libra. But Mercury squares Neptune on Saturday, where there is a lot of confusion. Again, this isn't like this is why I said in my Mercury retrograde video, this isn't a miscommunication, I don't think. I really think this is a misinterpretation. And I think Mercury squaring Neptune, this is really important because what goes down on Saturday night, that's going to come back. Someone's going to say something, you're going to say something, or someone's going to say something to you. And it's going to be like there's a lot of uncertainty. You might go with it for a minute, but you might still question it as, time goes on. So Saturday looks fun in a lot of ways where there's a lot of stimulation, there's a lot of connection. Moon in Libra trining Saturn is like, get your work done, get your priorities done, get your chores done, and then you can go and have fun. But then we get to Sunday. And the moon will trine Mercury, which is also really good. I think this will kind of like, after Mercury squares Neptune, the moon in Libra is going to be like, okay, what did they mean when they said that? Like, there's a lot of, trying to balance it. Like, oh, they didn't really mean that. Or, oh, well, I could see why they said it that way. Or, oh, like, I'll just, forget about it. That's not a bad thing either. Sometimes you just got to move on. But I think with the moon making that trine to Mercury and then going void before it goes into Scorpio is kind of like, you don't have to, the scales do not have to be even. There is a balance in life, but that balance requires a ebb and a flow. That doesn't require a stagnation. Stagnation is technically balance, right? There's the sense of unmovability. But when you talk about ebb and flow, good and bad, the good and the bad are always equal. It's either there's more good, less bad, and it's like this. That's just how life goes, right? You don't have to make things, and this is something I've learned as a Libra moon. It's not always fair. It's not always just. It's not always right. And it's up to you, because this is your life, on what that means. It's now the hard part is what you do with that. What actions you take after that, right? That's where the self-response. I don't know what it is in this day and age where people feel like they don't have self-responsibility, but if you're going to watch my channel, I'm going to preach to you that you're responsible for your life regardless of what's going on. You're responsible for your happiness. You're responsible for your outcome, because guess what? When you die, you're going to die alone. Anyway, moon's going to go into Scorpio after the Libra fiasco. And the moon's going to go into Scorpio trining Jupiter. Well, that's good for that's sexy in one perspective. But that's also don't feed yourself fears. Don't, tip the scales over so much that you get, raged out, right? The Jupiter can really gaslight. Jupiter and Pisces, I've literally never met a Pisces that would not expand anything you gave them. If you want to do good things, they'll take it farther than you. If you wanted to do bad things, they'll be badder than you. So you kind of have to be careful with Jupiter and Pisces, because Jupiter and Pisces is very enabling. So the moon trine Mercury on Sunday will be cool. There's this kind of balance, but Saturn station's retrograde. Now, I was thinking about making a whole fucking video about this, because what we saw in Texas earlier this year with the blackouts, what you just saw, which, by the way, this is a really big deal as far as for the people who are, investors, or really anyone that actually cares about being able to, pay their bills and live their life. So that pipeline that got shut off on the East Coast, that was fixed because I don't remember if it was the government or if it was the company or whoever paid the hackers a $5 million ransom through cryptocurrency. That's terrifying, because we don't even pay terrorists ransom. That's national I'm pretty sure that's our law, it legislated. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Yet in that situation where someone this is the thing, and I don't want to be a fearmonger with this, but I need to be realistic with you guys. This Saturn Uranus stuff, expect the electrical grid. Okay, I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick. I know some of you are excited, and I know some of you aren't. But for example, Elon Musk, who, by the way, deserves a bullet in his skull. The whole idea of him doing the servers and being oh, we're not doing Bitcoin anymore because it's taking up too much fuel, is an absolute lie. And anyone who believes that deserves to be pretty much scammed. Now, the thing is, though, electric cars, I don't know if you guys actually know how the electrical grid works in America, but electricity is powered by three things: coal, gas, or natural gas, fossil fuels, or oil, or natural gas. So you're really just putting a middleman and putting an extra step into, when you get an electric car, you're really not doing anything. And I'm also a big proponent of nuclear power. I know a lot of you are going to be well, Cameron, nuclear power is bad. No, it's not. We could do it better. There's also things like thorium, but however, this is the thing. All I can do is use my platform to really make you guys make better decisions. And one of those decisions is really being aware of our electricity. There are lives on the line with electricity. There are we depend on it so much that it's not a game anymore. So it's really in my opinion, if you do have the time and the resources, learn how we're actually doing all of this shit. For example, a lot of people want to do solar and wind, which that's fine in a lot of areas, but also if let's say your loved one is on a breathing machine in the hospital, and that hospital's powered by some fucking wind-powered turbine or some solar powers or solar panels. And there's so much evidence that shows that solar panels aren't sustainable, wind power isn't sustainable because the wind doesn't blow every day and the sun only shines half the day. We have to have sustainable energy. And also green energy like solar power and wind is only going to make electricity costs go higher, which only affects the poor more. So again, I know I'm bringing up a lot of different socioeconomic, political problems right now, but I'm bringing all of this up because when we look at the Saturn stationing retrograde, like a lot of you guys are in Texas. A lot of my followers were affected by that grid shutdown. And that is like, that was inevitable, but the only thing we can do is inform ourselves. In the Saturn stationing retrograde, you're going to see more of that. You're going to see more of that GameStop. You're going to see more of the AMC stuff. The shakeup between our resources, our security versus Saturn Aquarius, the social structures that enable those things is going to get shook up. And I know this, I kind of went to a, socioeconomic political rant, but to bring this back to your personal lives, as Saturn stations retrograde, you have to ask yourself, what is your responsibility and what is not your responsibility? Saturn's been direct for a while. It's been giving you all of this new authority. It's been giving you all of this new, for some people, it's also been like giving you more blocks, giving you more issues to deal with. Saturn moving forward, though, is much more granting authority, I think, more than anything, or at least showing you the road work. As Saturn stations retrograde, I've been making this analogy. Everyone wants to be the boss, but no one wants to do the work the boss has to do. Like, especially in retail. A retail manager has to deal with so much more shit. And as Saturn stations retrograde, this is that moment where it's like, sure, you're the boss, you get to have fun and be in charge, but you also have to deal with the shit customers. You also have to fire people. You also have to deal with all of the other bullshit. And this is when it comes in. So my big advice for this is like, get real. Really. Like, it's Saturn time. This is, one of my it's one of my favorite sayings is like, this is what separates the boys from the men. And you're just going to have to take on some hard work. And as Saturn squaring Uranus, what is so insecure in your life, or what is so unstable, what is so destabilizing that it's time to get a grip on it, right? That's the Saturn square Uranus. Shit so unpredictable, it's time to get a grip, and it's time to be the grown-up in the room. That's what Sunday looks like with Saturn stationing retrograde. What is your responsibility? If you're I saw a kid earlier at In-N-Out. I fucking hate kids, number one. I don't hate kids. I hate parents because it's not the kid's fault. It's the parents' fault. But it's just like, I saw this kid, of course the parents are just checked out, and this kid's running around just harassing the birds and being like, God, I want to kill this bird. I want to shoot this bird. It's just like, what kind of, okay, that kid's clearly going to go and shoot up a school here in a couple years. Like, that's not, weird at all. And it's just like, why don't you tell your kid to leave the fucking birds alone? Like, why is your kid gonna be a jackass like that? I know I'm just ranting here, but like, holy fuck. This is like Saturn stationing retrograde is like, be the parent in your life. No one else is going to. Sorry to say it. Like, again, this is why like personal responsibility is so important, because literally people say they want, like, this is the thing, for example, like the homeless people in Echo Park. All of the, moms out there like to, give them all of this stuff. And it's like, we're getting like street cats and feeding them, thinking you're helping them. You're not helping them. You're enabling that behavior. You have to understand what responsibility is. Help isn't always help. It's kind of like, oh my God, don't even get me started on My 600-Pound Life. The victims of that show, the overweight people who get exploited for TLC, and they don't even get compensation from it, I don't think. But then you have the people that go, oh, well, even though they weigh 500 pounds, they feel cranky, and so I'm going to go buy them 10 meals to eat. And you have these people, most of the time it's the parents or their spouses, enabling the addiction, the behavior. They're the reason why these people are on the borderline of death. And it's like, this Saturn shit is not, like, this is real. So many people don't understand responsibility. So many people, and like, I know I'm young. I know I don't get it all, but I at least what I try to be in the position is like, I need to be aware of that area though. And the thing is with Saturn stationing retrograde, you're going to know where that comes up. You're going to go, okay, I see where I need to take more responsibility now. And it's not easy. Saturn is called the greater malefic for a reason. None of it's easy. But life's not easy. So you either fuck around or you find out type shit. Man, that's what I got for you guys. Like I said, if you don't want commercials, become a patron, support me. I'll take off less commercials maybe off YouTube. Next week though, craziness really sets in. Total lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. Shit's gonna pop off. Venus is gonna square Neptune. We're gonna get really confused and also overstimulated. Like I said, this would be a great time to like not listen to as much music, not as much podcasts. Try to take out media in your life. But keep watching my videos. Venus is going to conjoin Mercury instead of Mercury conjoining Venus. So that's great. Mercury stations retrograde next week and Mars trines Neptune next week. So next week is like, we're off to the races, right? This is, how I said, I think it was last week, I was like, this is when the crazy begins. It's like last week was like the concert started and we saw the openers. Next week's the headliner. Well, yes, it's the headliner, but it's a festival. We're in day one of the festival, and we're just getting to the headliner of the day one, and that's next week. So enjoy the openers while we're here. With that being said, I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. I really don't have any more announcements. I just really wanted to talk about astrology this time around. So with that being said, I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you next week.